Hello, and thanks for joining us here at North Park Lounge in Cranberry for another edition of Offset with Kinger and the Big Man. Thanks to our friends at One Team Media for putting this all together. Of course, this is the big man, Jay Caulfield, Rob King, and the guy in between us.
The little guy.
No, is a big man, big stature, Bryan Trottier, the great Hall of Famer. Thank you very much for being with us, Brock.
God, always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. I love this guy, and we've done a lot of stuff over the years, Rob. Friendships are great, but supporting my boys here today.
We love it. So
thanks.
We're going to spend some time talking about your phenomenal career. I wanted to ask you about your upbringing near the U.S. border out in Montana, Saskatchewan.
The wilds of Saskatchewan.
Right. Your father was Cree, correct?
Cree, yeah.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about growing up and how you got into playing hockey.
Well, it's really fun, and being remote Saskatchewan, thinking about the NHL is like almost impossible, right? You have a clue how you're going to get there. I remember hockey night in Canada. I remember, milking cows. I remember helping Dad do chores, and you're 6, 7, 8 years old, and freezing cold winters, and learning how to skate on the creek right next to the house. And but the really kind of the fun stuff for me was, and I always say this I love writing, and writing a book was almost like reliving and reminiscing all that fun stuff of growing up. So whenever I talk about it, it's really kind of fun because it's in the book, All Roads Home, that I wrote during COVID, which was really kind of a labor of love, so to speak, because I got to talk about mom and dad growing up in Saskatchewan and all those years growing up on a ranch with horses and cows and, a garden and, a potato patch just a quarter mile long and weed and that hilling those. But it was really kind of a wonder. We thought every kid in Canada had a dad that would go down, chop open the beaver dam and flood the ice for his kids to have fresh ice in the morning.
It's awesome.
And we had, like some of the stuff is like almost like surreal, and when you're a kid you don't realize how cool it is, but a dad was a mighty man, a powerful man, big, strong, 6'1", Cree Métis, French, Canadian. Mom was Irish, full-blood, and I grew up in this wonderful sense of heritage with the native on dad's side and this Irish on mom's side, and both of them were very athletic. Mom and dad's, both families were very athletic. And dad would say, we come from a bloodline that's got a lot of athleticism. We're endurance and, strength and, we got this, agility. And on mom's side, her two brothers were like great ball players and really good hockey players, Donnie and Uncle John. And it was like, oh my God, I got all this, like this, I'm ahead of everybody already. And I'm on a mission to get to the NHL, right? Because I'm watching hockey night in Canada, Gordie Howe and Jean Beliveau raises Stanley Cup. I looked at Dad and I said, yeah, I want to play in the NHL. He goes, well, you better start practicing. And I was like, oh my God. And first pair of skates, and then learning how to skate, learning how to shoot.
How old was that when your first pair of skates?
First pair of skates were probably like 6, 7 years old, and then they cost $3. Sharp store. They went downstairs, blew the dust off these things. CCM, St. Lawrence Manufacturing.
By the way, I would say
it's so cool.
So Trots, if we went out for a public skate, like Trots, we had a birthday party for, say, our girls, and we're at a rink. Trots is a guy that could take the rentals off the rack and go out and skate exactly the same way. Yeah, no big difference. Didn't matter. Rollerblades, regular skates, rentals. You could do it all. So it was pretty busy.
When you clunk around the Frenchman Creek and you're dancing around all the stuff that's frozen into the ice, like twigs, like stretches, and you learn how to skate a certain style, Jay. It wasn't all that smooth, but it was effective. And all of a sudden you had a dead cow and it's frozen in there, and a horse's hoof sticking up somewhere else. We're like, oh my God, it was rough at times, but it was really special because it's remote, it's rugged, and you're not worldly enough to realize how spectacular it is until later. You get to write about it. I love writing, and telling stories. It's kind of in all of us. But to reminisce about all that fun stuff in the little town of Valmarie, population we grew up was probably 350. It's down to like 120. Mom did census for it in 2010. But to go back and see the same folks, there's just the same farmers and ranchers you grow up with, and a lot of them are passing away, but it's still really cool country. My sister still lives out there. They're making a living with farm and ranching, and I love heading out there. It's the mosquitoes just haven't changed. It's still hot during the day and cool at night. It's like the desert a little bit, it's like 100 degrees during the day and then it goes down to 60, 65 at night.
So Charles, with your dad, like you mentioned how remote and where you were, and when you mentioned your dad, hey, I want to play hockey. You want to be in that world. What was the steps from there? Like he found you, made ice, got a way to do that, but you also you mentioned how tough it was going to be part of that without leaving home.
And again, naive, you just think big and you dream and you say, oh my God, I think I have a chance, But all of us, and all those guys, little town of Elmarie and our mom's hometown of Climax, Saskatchewan, and Gordy Kluzak's home, it's really kind of cool that we all had this little dream of getting the NHL. We'll all get there together, help each other. We won a lot of tournaments. Dad was my coach, all the time, teaching me how to shoot and taught me how to shoot right-handed. And eventually I scored a goal left-handed. He said, well, I guess you're left. And just growing up with Dad as my coach, you constantly mentoring and that kind of stuff, and then getting to junior hockey, playing with Tiger Williams, and having him as a mentor, because I had no clue, but he was on a mission too. And I think we pushed and pulled, and go figure, a good coach, Stan Dunn, who was pretty good, and then boom, you get drafted. You have no clue about the draft. It was a secret draft. The World Hockey was there, the NHL, and they were both trying to pull players. I get drafted by both leagues, and I had no clue what to do. We got an agent, and it's really kind of cool to go through that, reminisce and talk about Mom and Dad getting looped on the plane on the way to meet Bill Torrey and the New York Islanders, first class, they did free booze, and God, they were tipsy if we got off that plane, but they shook off the cobwebs. We met Bill Torrey and we signed the contract. And I was 17 at the time, so.
And you were second, so 22nd overall.
22nd overall.
22nd overall,
right.
I figured, but they had to draft me early because same year as Pierre LaRouche, and they had to draft underage in the first 2 rounds.
Oh,
not get drafted at all. So I got maybe lifted up a little bit, but I was kind of a dark one. No one knew much about me. I was so young.
We talk about where you get a guy, and so Pierre LaRouche going one or way up there.
He was first round.
Yeah, so you can see that kind of talent, but to draft it, Bryan Trottier and get him 22nd, that's how you win championships. Yeah. Let me ask you this: did you? I came across this story. Did you truly almost quit?
Yes.
Tiger Williams talk you into. Think about how different your life is and what happens or doesn't happen. You were playing in juniors, right? And you almost quit the game.
I remember it like yesterday, and Tiger and I chuckle about it because I was 15 going on 16, and junior hockey was rough. I was small, I was 5'6", 160 pounds, and playing against monsters, 20-year-old guys that were like 200 pounds plus and beards, and I was so intimidated. On Boxing Day, the 26th, there's a knock at the front door, and Mom answers the door. It's like 7 o'clock, 7:30 in the morning, and there's Tiger Williams. And, hi, Tiger, how are you? Oh, hey, Mary, how are you? Oh, I want to have some breakfast? Oh, yeah, thanks, awesome eggs. Yeah, boom, boom, have coffee. And, what are you doing here? He goes, I come to get you. I'm dragging you back. I'm like, I'm not going. That was the first time I had said it out loud, right? Mom and Dad kind of, and so they're talking away, and they're not paying much attention. I said, Tiger, I'm not going. And I was I'll hog tie you, put you in the car if I have to. And like 20 minutes later, he says, we got to get on the road now. Roads are bad. There's a blizzard. He gets down there in this Trans Am or a GTO with bag tires. And I jump in the car with him. And I don't know why I jumped in that car. But the thing that I remember, and I'm going to write a book for little kids. And I think every kid should hear these words. Because when Dad looked up from his coffee, he just kind of said, you can always come home. And when I heard those words, it just kind of relaxed me a little bit. I said, yeah, I can always come home. I can go back. And if it doesn't work out, I'll come back home. And then, I was thinking, I'll finish school with my friends and just play hockey in my little hometown. And heck with the dream to the NHL. Hockey's not fun through junior hockey. There's got to be another path or something. And I'll finish school or whatever. But that was how close it comes, those moments. And Tiger pulled me back in, and the coach was great. The team was great. And Tiger said, I'm going to play left wing with you for the rest of the year. And no one touched me ever again. He became my big brother. And if someone touched me, he beat the crap out of him. And I said, what was that all about? He goes, I owed that guy. I said, not to touch you anymore.
How far away from home were you? Was your junior team?
70 miles. Like Swift Current.
I was close. Your dad said, and knowing that could help. Yep.
Yeah, but when you're 15, 16, you have a driver's license. It's like the other side of the moon.
Right.
Yeah. 70 miles, but it's forever. And, I thumbed a lot of rides home. And getting home was always fun because Mom always had your favorite meals ready, like, oh, you're home, boom, boom. Because I left with like 14, 15. And I was like, I was always homesick. And, kids got to know, you know what? You can be homesick, but you can still have a dream and, pursue it with all your heart, and something will happen.
And by the way, like the bench clearing brawl thing was a whole different world. Like when something like that would go down in the game and you haven't been a part of it before, that's a different world, right? In the hockey, in sport,
you have to square off with somebody.
Like you're somebody's right. So it's a different. And then there's only 2 refs, right? Well, a linesman and a referee at the time, right? So
2 referees.
There's
20. It's nuts.
Yeah.
But here's what happens, right? So I get back to Swift Current. Tigers playing left wing every day after practice. Jay, for the rest of that year, we'd grapple, and he'd teach me. He just maul me to death. It's exhausting, right? You know what it's like when you're mauling. Yeah. You did that to me, Calder. Anyway, it's just exhausting, right? And I said, I don't like this. But what he did unknowingly is he taught me how to grapple. We get these bench clear and brawl. I said, I'm not scared anymore. Like we handle these big monsters. I said, if I can handle Tiger Williams, these guys don't scare me anymore. You just use your leverage. You're strong. Just tie them up, grab here, group there. If they try to swing, put your head here. You know how it is. And after a while, if you get a lucky shot in, drill and grab on again. And that's kind of what I did. And but what's amazing? Like as many fights, like I didn't get in a lot of fights in junior, but I got in a lot of grappling because there's line brawls and you're fighting with somebody. You don't even get a penalty, right. But the other side of it is like you get a lot of ice time because we had a tough team. We had Williams, Ruskowski, Barney Back. We had a really tough team. And during national anthem in junior hockey, there'd be more guys in the penalty box than there'd be on our bench and on the ice. It'd be 12 guys. So in the penalty box, there'd be 5 guys on the ice and 3 guys on the bench. I'm like, I'm getting ice time tonight, boy.
So I wanted
brawls during warm up.
Yeah. So you mentioned Bill Torrey and going to the Islanders, and you win the Calder Trophy as Rookie of the Year.
Yeah.
Was that unexpected for you? I mean, at what point did you realize training camp or something? You're like, oh, I belong here. I mean, it's not like you were taken first overall. It's not like you had a lot of exposure to these kind of players. When did you know, hey, I can do this?
Again, I didn't think. I was pretty hungry. I wasn't going back home, and I wasn't going to the minor. I said, they're going to have to keep me here somehow because I'm going to hit everything there is to hit in training camp, whether it's during the scrimmages or exhibition games. I played all 13 exhibition games, and I think I ended up with a few assists, but I did. You were always playing with 13 flying guys.
Those games too, by the way. 13
exhibition games.
Right.
I played them all.
And they're a battle.
Everything that moved, there's brawls every day. And I'm having the time of my life because I'm on a mission to get this to the NHL, right? And the guys are kind of watching me. They're like, this little kid's got a little spunk. But Bill Torrey and Al Albert came up to me just towards the end of camp. We're going to keep you for a while. We got 9 games to decide what we're going to do. Just keep playing hard. And I was like, okay. And then next thing you know, I got with Clark Gillies, Billy Harris. We clicked. Started putting pucks in the net. Power play was going. Dennis Podvan, and what a team! All of a sudden, we're like, boom, things are happening. I'm like, oh, this is kind of fun. And 2 weeks in, I'm neck and neck with Guy Lafleur scoring race. I'm like, this is unreal. This doesn't happen. But you ride it, right? And now you say, if I can keep this going, I can do. And somehow we did. That Islander team was really good. We were young. We were all pretty hungry. Al was great, right? Kind of ice time, right? You need ice time and you need to play with the right player. And so if you're an offensive, you can create a little bit. And I wasn't dynamic. I wasn't stick handling for everybody like Mario. I was just kind of a give and go guy, soft pick, come in for a rebound, just kind of a junkie player, and but kind of an effective guy. And when I talk about it, I was probably the hardest working guy on the ice. That's how I liked it. Like nobody kind of worked me. I could towards the end of the game, I just make sure I was better conditioned than that guy because I could just wear him down, right, or catch him when he wasn't ready early in the game, and those kind of things help. So all kinds of crazy things happen. You get a fastest goal in the history of the NHL. You get like hat trick, your second game in the league. You get, set new scoring records, and you don't dream of those things, but when they happen, you kind of like to end. Calder Trophy, scoring championship. All these kind of fun things happen along the way, but you need some help from your teammates. You need some help from the coach, and you got to take advantage of it as a player.
The most unassuming superstar. Absolutely. I put Mario in that category too, but unassuming superstar, right? So you look at Trotz. I think one thing I've always said, Trotz, and I think Rob and I have talked about this, as I made the comparison before. I've never seen the only other player that looks always in an athletic position outside of you. Sidney Crosby's always in an athletic position.
Incredible.
Always in a position to pass, shoot, take a hit, make a hit. You were always that way. And you were like the most, in my opinion, one of the more devastating hitters in the game in that time frame. Because you went through people. You just did something.
Yeah.
You're mad. There's not any you did. But there are not Sidney Crosby, that reminds me so much of what you're about and how you played the game and that drive, that always in that position to do any part of the game.
Thanks.
And you did it with a degree that all the way to the end of your career. You're that phenomenal. It's a phenomenal thing to be. And now I understand why when you had to skate around cows frozen in the ice.
Yeah.
It makes sense to me now.
I had to jump over them sometimes. But it's really kind of fun to but you talk about, being ready and always doing something. Like that was kind of my game in the sense, not Sidney Crosby, believe me, Sid's another echelon or two above how I played. But you always want to, if you can make your teammates better, right? That's what Sid does.
Yeah.
And that's what I always try to do. Like, okay, Mike Bossy, Clark Gillies, whoever I played with, let's get them some goals because I know that I can get in there for some rebounds or whatever. But it's really kind of reflects well on when you look back because through it, you're just, all I wanted to do was win. All I wanted to do was raise the Stanley Cup over my head and have a lot of fun with teammates that wanted to do the same thing. Share it with the fans because Long Island fans were great. Pittsburgh fans are crazy great. And to share those championships, Jay, was really kind of like the bottom line, the joy of championship, the joy of feeling like a winner. There's nothing like it. There's just nothing like it. And when it happens to players, you see it and you see the joy in their face and, the dedication and the perseverance and how exhausting it is, right? 4 rounds of playoffs in a season. It's so worth it.
So 1980. So I just come back. From my first year away, school, and I come back and I'm watching it's the Flyers and the Islanders.
Yep.
Right.
Okay.
Post-expansion team. I think the first time two post-expansion teams.
Right. Playing in the finals. So we're down the Jersey Shore. So I remember being at a bar called Yesterday's and we were sitting there and you had to have a cheesesteak, cheesesteaks, steamed clams, and we're watching the game. And the place is going crazy. Little did I know, like later on, I'm going to end up, Trotz and I are going to be friends. But that game, the way it went down and, watching the Islanders, that was the beginning of turning, like, your whole regime. But that final game and the way it played itself out with Bob Nystrom, Tonelli, and you were the MVP of the whole play. I mean, that whole thing.
Smythe.
Yeah. To me, I happened to be watching that game down the Jersey Shore, but being a Flyers fan at that time and then watching that take place, but that was the beginning of your run.
The Flyers had a great team. Reggie Leach was still there. Bobby Clark, Billy Barber. They had a young Kenny Linsman, Holmgren. They had a really, really good team, and I think they went like 30-some games undefeated that year. And Pete Peters was in goalie. So like they didn't hand it to us. It was hard fought. There was some scraps along the way. Clark Gillies fought Terry Riley like 3 times in one game. So it was like one of those kind of playoffs. But through it all, we could have been, Billy Smith could have been MVP, Gillies, Nystrom, Bossy. There could have been Dennis Pock. Any one of us could have been MVP because all the guys kind of banded together. Butch Goring came on the team. Kenny Moore came from the gold medal team. There were just a lot of kind of fun pieces that happened. And I don't know if they'll ever happen again, but you need that to all. It's chemistry, right? And it's everybody's got to grab hold of the rope, and you need everybody, and we had everybody going.
So you mentioned the line, Clark Gillies, Mike Bossy, named the Trio Grande line, right?
Grande.
And they're Trio Grande, yeah, and there's a production line, and we don't see that as much now. The great lines. I want you to take off your modesty hat and tell me where that line fits with the greatest lines in hockey history. I mean, Mike Bossy, for people that maybe it's just kind of a forgotten, unbelievable superstar. Yeah. Just what a scoring machine. Yeah. And Gillies on the other side. I mean, that's an incredible line.
Yeah.
I'm sure you'd probably go out and play with anybody in the history, wouldn't you?
Well, all modesty aside, Clark Gillies, the prototypical power forward of our generation, right? Score, hit, fight, scrap. He was our big man presence. And you need a big man presence in a locker room, believe me, because it makes everybody play a little bit bigger, a little bit braver. And he was that guy. On the right side, we got Mike Bossy. He is like the most prolific goal scorer of that era, all time probably. He still has, I think, the record for most goals per game average. He and Mario are like neck and neck. So to me, that reflects on the guys I was playing with, right? Dennis Potvin on the point, and Billy Smith, and they just reflects on all of us, right? So they're having a contest. They want to name the Bryan Trottier, Clark Gillies, Mike Bossy line, and Clark goes, no, it's the Clark Gillies, Bryan Trottier. He always had his name first. And nobody ever argued with him, right? And he goes, so they'd go, well, we're going to have a contest. He goes, don't even have a contest. So all the reporters are there, right? And he goes, he stands up, just like John Wayne. He goes, call us the Trio Grande. And it's stuck. I was like, who's going to argue with Clark Gillies? So, he named us Clark. So Mike was not a big Western fan, but he said, okay, all right, I'll live with it. So a really fun story. Tampa Bay, we go down to Tampa Bay. They have the Battle of the Big Line. So this will help Rob's lead a little bit. They have the Triple Crown line there with Marcel Dion, Dave Taylor, and Simmer. They've got the Mahovlich Lafleur Shutt line. They've got, for Montreal, they've got the French Connection from Buffalo, Perreault, Robert, Martin, and they've got the Trio Grande line. And we're playing this tournament, and it's kind of like the Battle of the Big Lines, right? And we got a whole bunch of kind of clunky, wannabe, like Mario's tournament, some good players, some bad players, bad goalies, good goalies. And somehow our team ends up in the finals against the French Connection. So we're had this round robin, and so we're pretty excited. And Mike goes, I haven't played for a long time. I said, shut up. I just need you from the blue line in. Don't back check, don't do anything, but do your magic on the offensive zone. I said, I'll do all the other stuff, but you just concentrate on the offensive zone and don't go offside. Those are the only thing he had to worry about, right? And he was just scoring goals left, right, and center. He just has a knack, right? He hasn't played in 5 years. His back's always sore. He's kind of cranky, Mike, anyway. And so Clarky and I are, we're loving it, right? We're having a time of our life, and we're in the finals. We're playing against French Connection. We win 8-7. And Mike scores the winning goal. He scores 7 of our 8 goals. He scores the winning goal. Just typical Mike. Gets on a stick, turns, shoots, goes through everybody's leg by the goalie. Before anybody moves,
I did want to ask you about, so you win the Art Ross Trophy before the Cups, because I certainly want to get to the Cup run.
Yeah.
You won your Calder, you won your Art Ross, you won your Hart Trophy. And then Wayne Gretzky comes into the league. And I wanted to ask you why you think, when you think about him winning scoring titles, he won by 29 points in his 212 season. So that's the difference between the second leading scorer that year, Mike Bossy, and the 39th leading scorer. That's the difference between 1 and 2. And then later he wins by 72 points ahead of Peter Stastny. That's the difference between second and 56th. The difference between first and second.
I know, it's scary.
Why? And then, of course, Mario came along and started putting up those same kind of numbers. Then some guys, Yzerman and others, began to sort of at least get within shouting distance of that. Why? What did he change the way the game was played? Was there something? I mean, you look back at those numbers and you think, how is that possible?
Yeah, impressive skill, just vision, deception, change up speeds, and just kept everybody on the ice. Just kind of like, should I go at him? Should I back off? You didn't know what to do with the guy, but he was such a skilled player. Yeah, he kind of reinvented the game from the goal line, behind the net, the goal line, and the half boards, all that stuff that was not really he just made it his
domain.
Yeah. Good word. Yeah. And and we were all impressed. We're like, wow, this guy. And do you back check hard? Maybe. Once a pop, Did his goalie ever see him in his zone? Through 60 minutes of the game, kind of waved to him way out by. But the guys on the ice knew where he was, and they get that puck up to him, and then creativity took over, and we would just go, "Wow, that kid's got some kind of gene that just a lot out of it." But he raised it, and it's like Bobby Orr of his generation when Bobby Orr also took the game of defense and made it. Oh, there's some special Paul Coffey's come along. Those guys. So, it's impressive what he did.
We're going to double team you because Al Arbor and some other people said, hey, because of your all-around game, because you didn't have to waive your goal. You did go back. You did play in all three zones. Said, listen, I'll take Bryan Trottier over Wayne Gretzky. So again, he's downplaying his greatness as an inner circle Hall of Famer. But Jay, what you had something about?
Yeah, it's the greatest line. Wayne Gretzky was even on. It was even recent. I mean, he said it multiple times, but his toughest competitor. They said, who's the hardest guy to play against, and who is as far as skill, and then how they defended. And Bryan Trottier, he would say it. I've heard him say it multiple times, but he just said it a couple of weeks ago on TNT that you were, from Wayne Gretzky, that you were the toughest competitor that he ever played against.
Yeah, those are wonderful compliments. We really the very best of the very best. Obviously, you love playing against them, and you love competing against them, and you be able to at the end of it say, hey, yeah, we beat each other fair and square at the end of the night. And Wayne's one of those guys. So you can't ask for a more gracious person like Mario, like the best Bobby Orr, all those guys that are so good. They're also good people. They carry the ambassadorship. So,
I know.
Yeah.
So I know.
Kind of describing yourself there.
So quickly, real quick. Mario Gretzky. We've seen him. You've played against him. Played with Mario. It's such a hard. I just look at him, the size factor. Mario being 6'5" and Gretzky being his size, but you play with him and against him.
I played against both of them. I played with Mario. Yep, a lot, obviously, and we see Mario practice, and it's a highlight reel. Every practice, every game, there's something spectacular going to happen. And Wayne is that kind of a player, obviously. But if I'm picking a guy, I'm grabbing Mario. It's just like Mario, like you said, size, reach. That is just another level. And if he's healthy, for his whole career. And he plays as long as Wayne, he could pursue some of those now closer. I think it would, because look at what Ovechkin's did. And Wayne was so gracious about that, hey, the kid did it fair. So those kinds of things come along. But I'm grabbing Mario. And again, no disrespect to Wayne at all, because I got so much respect for Wayne. But I think all of us know, I think that Mario's reach one-on-one.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's a better, but Gilbert Perreault, he could dangle, but Mario one-on-one, he dangled for you guys.
I'm so sorry. Trotson, you remember this one. Yeah. The goal he scored against John Casey against Minnesota. Right? Oh, yeah. But I even said what he did to the neutral zone, but it was how he took the first pass. I think Borky moved it up to him. He takes it in full flight, but takes it on his backhand, whips it around it was what he did in our defensive zone, getting through the neutral zone, and then the move he made through the 2D. And I knew all three of those guys, by the way. Playing John Casey, who's North Dakota goalie, Sean Chambers, and Neil Wilkinson. So I'll never forget. Yeah, but to me, but
both
what he did,
look at panic. When Mario pulled towards Neil went, "Oh no!" And all of a sudden, went to Chambers "Oh, thanks." Chambers "No, go back to Neil." It was caught. In hindsight, it was. We make a little comedy out of it, but no, Mario, that was a spectacular. That is a goal of the century, maybe of all time.
Just a movement though, for how he just makes everything is. Yeah, I've never seen. And Rob,
Steph,
you could never catch him.
Right.
I think just because he's 6'5" and didn't look like a scatterbug, flying. He's a different kind of speed.
And that goal he scored against Boston against Ray Bork.
Oh yeah,
Bork's trying to hook him and holds him, and he just doesn't lose a step.
How many times does he call? How many times there's a goal against Quebec too, where they could have called 5 penalties by the time from the neutral zone to the net, and then the arm didn't even go up once. But by the way, he still scored a goal. But that good. But you being around him, and I said you are
statue goal. The statue.
Yeah, I don't know.
Pittsburgh. He splits the defenseman, and I'm like, this is going to be a train wreck. Bobby Erie throws him a suicide pass. And I'm like, and he sneaks through, scored, doesn't miss a stride, right? And so Jeff Norton and Richard beat out the new defenseman, right? So I could say, hey, you guys are forever immortal in the city of Pittsburgh. Really? Yeah, you're on the statue. Mario busted through.
Well, we have much, much more ground to cover with our guest, Bryan Trottier.
Thanks, Bryan.
Inner Circle Hall of Famer. Right, taking a backseat to no one, right? As a person and as a player, we have more coming up with Bryan Trottier. Yep. We want to thank again One Team Media for shooting this segment of our Bryan Trottier interview. Our friends here at North Park Lounge in Cranberry. For Jay Caulfield, Bryan Trottier, I'm Rob King. Thanks for watching this edition of Offset with Kinger and the Big Man.